Tonight, Parkland goes back to school. Bureaucrats wage war on abortion. And
if we don't do this now, then there's not going to be any future in education in West Virginia.
Hope Hicks, one of the president's longest-serving and closest aides, is resigning as White House communications director. In a statement, Trump said he would miss her, but understood that she wanted to pursue other opportunities. Yesterday, Hicks sat for an 8-hour interview with the House Intelligence Committee, where she admitted telling occasional white lies, and she's reportedly been interviewed by Special Prosecutor Bob Mueller's team. Hicks has been at Trump's side since before the launch of his presidential bid, but managed to keep a relatively low profile until scandal flared up around Staff Secretary Rob Porter, whom Hicks had dated. She hasn't announced a departure date yet. Early this morning, the city of Charlottesville followed a judge's orders and removed the tarps covering a pair of Confederate statues. Last summer, the city council voted to drape black cloth over the statues of Confederate Generals Robert E. Lee and Stonewall Jackson to symbolize a period of mourning for Heather Heyer, who was killed during the white nationalist rally in August. Months before the rally, the city had voted to take the statues down, but a lawsuit that's still in progress prevented officials from doing that. Thousands of people gathered along the streets of Mumbai today to watch the funeral procession for Sri Devi, the iconic Bollywood actress who drowned in a hotel bathtub over the weekend. The 54-year-old, who was cremated with full state honors, starred in some 300 films over 5 decades. In India's male-dominated movie industry, she became a star who could draw audiences on her own and who redefined roles for women. In a survey of 5,000 Disneyland employees, workers say they've had difficulties paying rent and buying food on their wages from the happiest place on earth. And more than 1 out of 10 employees reported they'd been homeless in the past 2 years. The survey was conducted by a nonprofit and paid for by a coalition of 11 unions. They're asking the resort to raise its base wage to $20 an hour. Disneyland, which employs about 30,000 people, slammed the report, saying it was inaccurate and unscientific and that it was funded by politically motivated labor unions. Dick's Sporting Goods, one of the largest sports retailers in the country, won't sell assault-style rifles or high-capacity magazines anymore. They'll no longer sell firearms to anyone under 21 either. Chairman and CEO Edward Stack said that even when the company followed existing rules and laws, it ended up selling a shotgun to the Parkland shooter last November. It wasn't the gun used in the school shooting, but Stack said it could have been, and called on lawmakers to pass gun control regulations.
We're staunch supporters of the Second Amendment. I'm a gun owner myself, but we've just decided that based on what's happened and with these guns, we don't want to be a part of this story.
Late today, Walmart announced that it, too, would stop selling guns and ammunition to buyers younger than 21. The retail giant stopped selling assault rifles in 2015. A massive teachers' strike in West Virginia that started last Thursday and closed every school in the state is supposed to end tomorrow, after the governor and the teachers' union reached a tentative deal. Governor Jim Justice said he'll give West Virginia's teachers, who are among the worst paid in the country, a 5% raise, but some teachers believe they should have held out for more. Schools are set to reopen tomorrow, and today was meant to be a cooling-off day. But it didn't feel that way.
At this point, I feel more outraged and more angry than what I did on day one. We are on strike not only for teachers, but for all state employees, and the original reason why we went on strike was due to all of the changes that they were making to PEIA. PEIA is the health insurance for all state employees. It's been a good benefit for all state employees to have up until recently. They seem to no longer have the funding for it. The cost of my insurance premiums are going up. It's hard for me to afford myself on my health care, let alone my son. A couple years ago, I was diagnosed with a very rare disease called dermatomyositis. So I need my health insurance, but if these changes go through, then I could be paying a whole lot more than what I am now. I'm just fighting for what I feel like I need for myself and my family. There are over 700 vacancies in education in the state of West Virginia. Nobody wants to stay here to teach. Why would they? I feel prepared to strike for as long as it takes for them to know that we are serious about finding a solution. If we don't do this now, then there's not going to be any future in education in West Virginia. It terrifies me to strike because I'm a single mom and I don't know what's going to happen. I need my health insurance. I need my job. So I just don't know.
Over the past year, an obscure government agency, the Office of Refugee Resettlement, and its director, Scott Lloyd, have repeatedly tried to block pregnant, undocumented teenage girls in its custody from obtaining abortions, even when those pregnancies were the result of sexual assault. In one case, a 17-year-old girl crossed into the U.S. in the fall of 2017. She had been raped in her home country and requested an abortion. She changed her mind briefly when her mother and uncle threatened to beat her. But a few days later, she renewed her request and threatened to hurt herself if she couldn't end the pregnancy. Scott Lloyd rejected that request, writing that even if a pregnancy was the result of rape, the government needed to, quote, protect life rather than to destroy it. It took an order from a federal judge before the woman, known in court filings as Jane Poe, was able to get her abortion. In another case, a 17-year-old from El Salvador found out she was pregnant while in a Texas shelter. She asked for an abortion and on March 3rd took the first of the 2-pill medication abortion regimen to end the pregnancy. But before she could take the second pill the next day, ORR found out and had her taken to an emergency room for an ultrasound. While she was waiting, an ORR-affiliated official emailed the clinic inquiring about whether administering the hormone progesterone could stop the abortion. The clinic did not respond, and the 17-year-old was eventually allowed to complete the abortion. The ORR's new pro-life crusade first came under public scrutiny in October, when the agency tried to block the abortion of a 17-year-old identified as Jane Doe. Vice News interviewed her.
How did it make you feel when people were trying to change your mind?
No, bueno, me sentía mal porque sentía como si que no tenía apoyo de nadie. No tenía apoyo de nadie. Yo no quería que me dijeran porque ya la decisión yo ya la había tomado. Ya no quería que ellos no me gustaban que me llevaran hacia médicos, pero ellos siempre me decían va a ir a médicos. Y yo no podía hacer nada porque siempre me decían no está en su casa, me decía, está aquí, están nuestras responsabilidades. Entonces no había de otra que yo tenía que. Pero cuando yo ya no quise que me llevaran.
So far, the ACLU has succeeded in helping these girls end their pregnancies. But why does the Office of Refugee Resettlement suddenly care so much about abortions? The answer starts with Scott Lloyd. Lloyd is a staunch conservative lawyer who formerly worked for the Knights of Columbus, a Catholic organization. But he has limited experience dealing with refugees. Instead, his career has been almost exclusively devoted to an aggressive pro-life agenda. From working on the Terry Schiavo case to co-authoring the, quote, conscience rule, which protects healthcare providers who oppose abortion. He also co-founded an organization to develop pro-life, pro-faith legal strategies and sat on the board of a crisis pregnancy center. What Lloyd hasn't done is give interviews, except one to the Global Catholic Television Network.
But we need to do everything that we can to protect the dignity of human life from conception to natural death.
He's turned down more than a dozen requests from Vice News, even from his own driveway.
Excuse me, Mr. Lloyd. Can we ask you a few questions?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Do you have any comment on the Jane Roe death?
No, get off my property.
Okay,
Get off my property. I'm calling the cops right now.
You just said I could ask you questions, sir.
Can you raise your right hand?
Now, a video deposition, obtained exclusively by Vice News, shows how Lloyd and a small group of pro-life activists are reshaping the Refugee Office's policy on abortion, and how he got the job in the first place.
Did you particularly apply for the position of ORR director? Someone reached out to you and selected you to be the director of ORR?
Yes.
Under Lloyd, any abortion-related procedures for unaccompanied girls in immigration custody require his written permission. The depositions reveal 7 requests for abortions between March and December of 2017. Lloyd refused them all. The ACLU says it was able to help 3 of those girls obtain abortions anyway, and ORR says no one has had to carry a pregnancy to term because an abortion request was denied.
Is there any circumstance where you would find that an abortion is in the best interest of a minor?
I don't know.
It has not happened yet?
No.
Is that because you believe that abortion is the destruction of human life?
That's part of it.
What's the rest of it?
The rest of the circumstances surrounding the request.
But Lloyd never indicates what circumstances might be acceptable, and he's ordered shelters housing minors to only offer, quote, life-affirming options counseling to pregnant girls. In his testimony, Lloyd fumbled to explain what that term meant.
What do you mean by life-affirming options counseling?
Options counseling that affirms life.
Whose life?
Well, life, generally, anybody's life. So in the context of pregnancy, it would be the mother and the child.
Lloyd wasn't the only one deposed. Also testifying was Jonathan White. White wasn't hired by Lloyd. He's a career government employee who is a member of the U.S. Public Health Service Commissioned Corps and has worked at ORR under 3 administrations. His deposition shows how the agency has done a 180 on abortion since Trump took office.
Does HHS at this time consider abortion to be part of access to medical reproductive health services?
Not at this time.
Are you aware of a time in which HHS did consider access to medical reproductive health services or family planning to include abortion?
Yes.
And when was that time?
That was the operational interpretation in the last administration.
White also said that Lloyd hasn't made these changes on his own. Instead, he's been working closely with a woman named Maggie Wynn.
It looks like Maggie Wynn was involved in requests for termination of pregnancy before Scott Lloyd became the director of ORR. Is that fair?
That's correct.
After Scott Lloyd was appointed as director of ORR, has Maggie Wynn been involved in setting policy with respect to unaccompanied minors' access to abortion?
She's been among the staff involved.
Do you know if Maggie Wynn has a religious opposition to abortion?
I believe so.
Like Lloyd, Wynn is also affiliated with the Knights of Columbus. She was appointed counselor to the Secretary of Health and Human Services by President Trump. And she first landed at HHS in the Bush administration. But former ORR employees tell Vice News she didn't have much influence during the Obama years because of her staunch pro-life views. Jonathan White testified that Wynn played the key role in delaying the medication abortion of the 17-year-old from El Salvador.
Who made the determination to direct that the UAC be taken to an emergency room of a local hospital?
I know from whom we received that direction. I don't know who ultimately made that decision.
Who did you receive that direction from?
We received that direction from Maggie Wynn.
Did ORR explore whether the mifepristone could have been reversed through progesterone?
We were directed to explore that.
And is all of this direction coming from Maggie Wynn?
That direction came from Maggie Wynn.
We reached out to Maggie Wynn for comment. She didn't get back to us. Scott Lloyd's office said there would be no comment on pending litigation and again ignored our request for an interview. Most of ORR's actions have happened largely in the dark, and it continues to operate with little scrutiny, showing no signs of backing off from its pro-life agenda. Which means ACLU lawyers can expect to be very busy over the next 3 years.
Today we're coming back to school for the first time since the shooting. I'm a little nervous, but at the same time, hopeful in a way. I think that today is going to be a very hard day, but ultimately a very positive day. All right, ready to go?
No.
It's okay.
I love you.
Love you too.
I have like waves of terror, and then it subsides because he's right here, and then life is normal, and then something happens, and I feel like that I'm gonna leap off of something. I feel like all the parents in Parkland, nervous. I feel like we lived in a bubble that's been punctured. We all picked Parkland because Parkland is Parkland. It's so safe. It's the best place to raise your kids.
The whole vigil I was pretty okay throughout. I was very focused on just tending to my friends who had gone through the worst and making sure that they were all okay. I don't know, I just kind of broke down.
Georgie said something to me. He asked himself, was why me? Why did I survive? Why was I chosen to survive and not over them? And I think he was really struggling with that question.
It was hard going back today, just looking around.
It was strange in that, we went back to our the classrooms that we were in our fourth periods first. We're never going to be able to go back into the 1200 building. That's where we had meetings for Poetry Club. I think they might be knocking it down over the summer. I think our tests at the end of the year are getting waived, so I feel like that relieves a lot of the pressure.
We lost one of the members of our orchestra, actually. We all felt that loss, and we were shaken by it, but at the same time, some of us would pick up guitars and play, and others would sing along. That was I liked that part of the day. It was like sunlight. It felt that way.
This is Shumiko Tieno. He's 13 years old and has been training as a ballet dancer for the last 4 years.
How did it feel the first time you put the tights on and you looked in the mirror?
I feel kind of weird because I've never put on tights. My friends were enjoying me, telling me tights are for girls. And I told them then it's okay. I'll still do ballet even if tights are for girls. This is our room. This is my bed and this is George's bed.
A year ago, Shamik moved out of his family's home to live at a boarding house in Nairobi and train on an intensive schedule of 10 classes per week.
Hello, Mom. Hey. I'm good, Sasa. You miss her sometimes. Not sometimes. You actually miss her. You know, you are used to her. She knows everything about you, you know everything about her. So, staying away from her, it's a bit difficult.
Shamik grew up in Kibera, a huge, densely populated slum in Nairobi, and one of the least likely places for a budding ballerina to be discovered. But this is where Mike Wamea, who teaches dance to kids living in poverty, found Shamik.
It's my tool to use dance to transform education system in Kenya because compared to other countries, like in the first world countries, we're still struggling to bridge the gap between rich kids and less privileged kids. Dance is a process, is a journey. And through that journey, you get to dream. And through that dream, you get to become who you want to be.
Do you miss your life here?
Not so much. I don't miss you that much. Yeah. But I do miss my family.
We met Shamik's mom and sister in the one-room house where he grew up. Twice a month, he goes back to visit.
What was it like to raise Shamik?
Familia iko chini kabisa. The last born out of the 6, it was noticed. Shamik told me about Dali. My mind,
even when we heard that Shamik was sponsored, we were so happy because here in Kibera, there's so many struggles.
Shamik is hardworking, very hard. So I know one day he will be somewhere, but I don't know which place. Yeah, great.
Shamik's mentor, Joel Kioko, is also from Kibera and has become a national sensation in Kenya.
When I see him dancing, I want to become like him and do such stuff that he does. Every time after we finish class, he looks like he has come from the pool, but he was in class dancing.
So this is the first time I'm hearing you talk about it. So I'm like, okay, really?
Joel has been accepted to the English National Ballet, where he's training on a full scholarship for 3 years.
I want to make the road clear for these kids to pass in, so that's what keeps me going.
And as for Shamik, his instructor says with just 4 years of training, he's already a stronger dancer than Joel was at his age.
2, 3, and what is your dream for your ballet career?
I would love to dance, to be a professional dancer. I feel when I do ballet, I feel like I'm free.
That's Vice News Tonight for Wednesday, February 28th.